I have to be so real with you guys. Not enough people talk about this, but if you want to have an actually meaningful life, you need to know how to struggle well. I'm not talking about avoiding it, escaping it, but you need to be able to thrive even when you have a bajillion things on your plate and even though you feel like you're overwhelmed and drowning. A lot of times when people struggle, usually they first think, oh man, why is this happening to me? I don't understand, or they feel overwhelmed. And then instead of actually learning from a really hard opportunity and learning to use it to grow, they tend to just get really lost in a lot of the problems, anxieties. They start to over catastrophize and all of that. But I'm here to tell you, especially as someone who is really going through things in the thick of it right now, this is the best time for you to grow, to be better, and to operate and execute things on a higher level. And I'm gonna walk you through that in this video. And I just want to reiterate too that if you're rich, if you're poor, you're young, you're old, everyone is going to struggle. That is just the part about this life. That's just what it is. But it's just, how do you deal with that? How do you wrestle with that? How do you come out of what you perceive to be a failure and turn it into something that's worthwhile? I think a lot of times when it comes to struggling, it does feel like you're really uncertain. It feels like sometimes you don't have that foundation or somebody just pulled the rug underneath your feet. But when it comes to how do you live life consistently in a way that is intentional, that has authority, that is able to help you achieve those goals in the long run, it's going to be when you really understand how to struggle well and to use those lessons that you learned when struggling and turn it into your greatest strengths. Now, I've been talking a lot about why struggling is important, but this is why I felt really compelled to make this video. I have been going through the craziest transition within the past month, 2 months. And some of you guys know my last video over here, I mentioned that I got laid off. I was somebody who had wanted to be a pre-medical student who wanted to be a doctor since I was 8. I studied a ton, graduated college early at the age of 19. And I struggled a lot for that too. I did 20 plus science units every single semester. I worked 3 different part-time jobs while I was doing that. And every single day was just wake up, eat, sleep, wake up, study, rinse, and repeat. And I think I learned a lot from that. But I realized that even though I had the capacity and ability to struggle in that way, it wasn't in a way that was sustainable for me quite yet. And so when I got to grad school and I found that there was a lot of other new challenges that I had, such as learning how to do research for the first time, going globally, learning new languages, and those were all really great blessings for me to be able to grow as a professional. But those were also a lot of struggles. It was really hard to be on student government, to also be a full-time student, to do biostatistics, which is one of the hardest classes at the USC Keck School of Medicine for my program. And so all of those things, they were really hard, but they made me grow. And I think looking back now where I am currently struggling, so right now, I moved from the healthcare industry to now tech. And it's so ironic because I originally did that because my whole team got laid off and I thought, well, I need to find another job. But I think the possibly worst field I could have chosen to go into, that's probably even more debatably unstable as public health, is tech. So I'm in tech now. And I chose not only to be in tech as someone who does not have a tech, but rather a healthcare background. I also decided to work for a startup. So that has been so interesting. And the reason why I say to bring this video is not to just complain about it, but I've just been really wrestling a lot, honestly, about how it feels to work so hard and feel like it's not enough. And I think I look on the outside like I'm really good at struggling, or I just look like I don't have a care in the world. I have good makeup on. I have clothes that look really cute. I put nails and I put a lot of intentionality into looking and showing up physically. So people just think that, oh, I have such an easy life, but it's not that. And I want to share with you, honestly, I struggle too. There have been so many moments this past month where I just wanted to scream. I was so stressed, so overworked, so desperate that I felt like I was so upset, honestly, angry, because I felt like I just had to work and I just had to just do it and just keep doing it. And I felt like it was just hopeless, but I didn't even have the energy to be angry. And I think that's when I realized that I really need to change. And I think for me changing, it wasn't just me thinking, oh, I need to change jobs. But when I thought about it and I prayed about where I am now and what needs to change, I think it was my mindset, honestly. I think in the beginning, when you first start working for a startup, it's a lot of excitement. It's a lot of innovation. I had pretty bad depression, honestly, when I was looking for a new job. It was not just looking for a new job and having the stress and pressure of going to a really expensive school for graduate school and not being able to get hired by the same team that I'd been working for the past 3 years with because of grant issues. It was also just me dealing with uncertainty of lack of desire, lack of fulfillment of passion. And so when I met this person and we created the startup together, I was so excited. I honestly, and I still am excited. I still am really thankful for this opportunity. But I think as someone who is a really high achiever, my typical go-to, I guess, MO is I do have to work hard, obviously. Of course, I have to work hard and I have to try and have to struggle. But I'm more used to not having extremely prolonged seasons of struggling and not getting any reward or any sort of advancement per se. I think, for example, if you study for the MCAT or if you do school, for me, for university, I finished undergrad in about 1.5 years. And so I was able to get my biochemistry background degree in a very short amount of time. And I saw each semester all the time and all the effort that was being rewarded. But I think with a startup, there's just so much uncertainty when it comes to, hey, are we going to go out of business in the next 90 days? Oh, do I need to make a sale now? What is VC? What does it mean to develop on the edge? What are all these bajillion different new terminology? And of course, it's exciting, but I think once the excitement wears off, then you're kind of dealing with now. It's not exciting and new now. It's grind time. It is. I have to hit the ground running. I have to clock in those 14-hour days. It's not even necessarily that my team has put that expectation on me, but I think for me as somebody who is pretty young, now I have a director role. Can you believe it? And I think just being in a totally different field and wanting to almost prove myself and honestly have metrics. I think when it comes to startups, there's very limited VC or very limited funding. We're definitely bootstrapping at this point. And I think it's really hard, honestly, to try to move forward in a way where I feel like we can gain more stability. And it's really hard. I think sales is something that has taught me a lot of things. And I think it's great, but I think it's really hard. I can go on and on about how hard my job is. Well, I went to this conference and there was a lot of things that I walked 9 to 12 miles every single day. I walked so much that my toenails split in half and all these crazy parts. But I think when I look back about where I was when I was really depressed and I was trying to find a job versus now where I feel like I have purpose, I'm moving with greater execution, I feel like I'm learning a lot of new skills and meeting new people, I think that's something to be grateful for. And I think that's my first point about all of this is that even though the struggle seems really hard at the time, there is something to take away from it. There's a lot to take away from it. And in fact, I think sometimes if you think about yourself as a vessel, right? I think sometimes God honestly breaks us and reshapes us and remolds us to have a bigger capacity for what we originally think. I think in the beginning, we think that, oh, we can hold this much, like a small cup. But if God really wants to bless you, right, and wants to give you all these things and wants to put you in a bigger and a better position and wants you to steward better, you're not going to get better by just being in the same place that you are. And sometimes growth is painful. In fact, almost all the time, growth is painful. And that's why they say it's growing pains, because you need to be able to just have that capacity be stretched and bigger, and you can be better and you can learn more skills so that when it is that time, that opportunity that comes for you to take that big shot, to get that promotion, to do a different job, to be in a position of influence, that is what is going to prepare you. It's the growth, it's the struggles, it's the nights that nobody sees you working so hard. That is what's going to produce that character. And that character that's in that crucible, that is what is going to perform. That's what's going to help you be consistent when you need it. I just want to tell you from person to person, if you are struggling right now, whether it's personal, whether it's financial, whether it's career-wise, trying to find your purpose, I think that you will struggle no matter what it is that you're doing in life, but it really is just dependent upon how are you going to struggle, pick your struggle, and hopefully it's one that's going to help you grow. And so I think the first thing is obviously your mindset. And the second one is also understanding why things are happening. And sometimes things don't always happen with a very clear reason why. It's like, oh, I got laid off so I could have this dream job. Or sometimes it's not the next job that you get. Sometimes it's like the 7th job after that layoff. Or I think for me, one of my biggest fears for being part of the startup is also being so afraid of getting laid off again, of just not meeting metrics, of not performing enough and having to just start again and find another job. But I think more so than that, I think having the opportunity to just be exposed to a totally different world that I had never been a part of is something that I'm honestly pretty grateful for. I was able to fly out for work. I was able to go to the CES conference, and I was able to really meet new people who are decamillionaires, people who are billionaires. There was the founder of Windows just walking around like a normal person, and this guy is a billionaire. And I think being able to just be okay with facing rejection. I think that conference for me, the one where I walked 9 to 12 miles, it was all about physical stamina. It was all about being in control of my body, of my facial features, of just my expressions, being able to really genuinely connect with people. I had very easily 200 plus conversations with people. Some of them were pretty icky. And so I think being able to have that rejection therapy is something that really toughened my skin. I think now I don't have a problem with talking to strangers. I don't have a problem with going up to somebody and saying, hey, I love your vest. Where'd you get it from? Reaching out to people. And if people hate me for it, if people think I'm blah, honestly, that's not my problem. I don't care. And I don't think that I could have had that if I didn't force myself to go through the most uncomfortable, excruciatingly painful just experience of talking to somebody over and over and over again and getting rejected over and over and over again. And these are people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. They are a lot older than me. And so when they see this 5'1" short Asian girl who's trying to go up to them and talk to them, and they're like, oh, what's this little gremlin doing here? What's this little kitty doing here? And being automatically just discredited for being super young and looking like I'm super wet behind the ears. I think still giving it my all, still being able to connect with people in the end, walking away with having a new business connection. I think that has given me a lot of confidence and a lot of determination that you can do things. You're more capable of doing things than you think you are. You just have to put in the work, and you have to, unfortunately, struggle. And so if you really want to be successful, I think what I'm learning is struggle well and know that it's for a reason. There is always something to take away from anything that you're struggling with, even if it is the loss of a family member. Sometimes that's a good time to really think about your life, reassess. It's a good litmus test for thinking about, are you really aligned with a life that you think is worth living? And I think there's always something to, it's good to be positive too. I think for me, I'm not naturally a happy-go-lucky person. And I think another thing of struggling well and the benefits of doing that is being able to be more optimistic. I'm always looking for a way to learn from something, even though there's setbacks or there's failures. Yes, sometimes, of course, I get frustrated, cry to God. I do feel there are times where I feel really hopeless and discouraged. But after that time, I think, all right, enough is enough. You got to pull yourself up from the bootstraps, and you got to think, what can I learn from this? Because stressing too much about something, worrying about something, and just being consumed by the wave of emotions that struggling and suffering has for you is not the way to overcome and win life and to suffer well. Because I can't guarantee, unfortunately, I would love to tell you that you work hard enough and then maybe when you're 35, you stop struggling at all. You'll never have another struggle, or you'll never have to suffer another day in your life. But unfortunately, we're imperfect humans. This world is imperfect, and suffering is never going to go away. But I think one of the things that I'm really learning is to never let my sufferings take away my current joys. I think that's the last thing that I want to leave with you all today, is that I think there's so many things that we think they suck, but it could be worse. It really, truly could be worse. I was talking to a mentor earlier this week or last week, and we were talking about how to suffer well. And she was saying something that there were two sisters, I think, who were captured by soldiers in Nazi Germany at the time. Originally, they were helping people escape, and so they got caught. And when they got caught, they had lice that was so bad that they were bleeding all the time. It was so itchy, and the sisters were crying out to each other that it was just so unbearable. And the thing is, even though that sounds horrible, I've never had lice before, but I can't even imagine how bad that is. Imagine if the worst, like that surprisingly wasn't the worst. The worst was that a lot of times these soldiers would come in and they'd take advantage of these women prisoners. But because they had the lice and other people knew that there was lice in this prison, they never touched those girls and they never went near them. And so I think between being assaulted and having really horrible lice, I would choose the lice. And so I think sometimes even when you think something is really bad, and I'm sure you might think, oh, Emily, you don't know what I'm going through. Oh, Emily, you don't suffer like I do. I might not. We might have different, or I'm pretty sure we will have different sufferings and different obstacles in our life. But I think the principle of the matter still stays the same, where your life is going to have suffering. But how do you deal with that well? And I hope that you can learn, take the time, maybe journal 10 minutes, really think about what it is that you're struggling through. Think about how you can go through that in terms of mentally being able to really change whether or not you can either decrease something that you're doing, or if you are just really going through a tough season, but it's because you're learning something new, how can you create systems and different habits that can help you leverage your time to do something more, which I can help you do. I have other videos that I'll make soon about that. But I just want you to think about that and think about winning. Think about the other side of the struggle. How do you want to come out of this? What kind of person do you want to be after the struggle? Those are the kinds of things I want you to focus on. And I want you to also enjoy life. You may look back on this time, even though you're struggling so much, and think, man, those were the good old days. That's what I thought when I was younger. It's just like my younger days compared to now. Oh, those were the good old days. I thought it was hard. Oh, that's cute. It's harder now. And I'm sure even 40-year-old me, Lord willing, hopefully that I live to that long and longer, I can look back on this time and be like, oh, that's cute. I thought I was really working hard, but really like these are the good old days. And so I think instead of, if it's worth it that my future me thinks that it's the good old days in the future, why don't I just also enjoy the good old days now in the present and just enjoy what, the Lord has given me and provided me. So that's it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching and for listening. I really hope that this has inspired you and encouraged you that if you are struggling, you're not alone. And if you are having a great season of your life, I really wish you the best. I really wish you just a long season of happiness. And also just maybe it's a good time to be grateful too. I think it's always great to be grateful regardless of what your situation is. And it's always great to prepare for the stormy days. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more on how to live your life in an intentional way, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you want to see next. Bye.